What's going on, friends? This is a part 2 of what's now, I guess, a part 1 and 2 of how to make camp great. I just filmed a video a few days ago about how to make camp great, and I think I'll link that up top somewhere up here, if I can figure it out, which sounds like the most boomer thing in the world to say, but we did a how to make camp great video, and I realized after I made that there's a lot of other things to camp that I did not talk about. So that's what this video is to kind of fill in some gaps and holes of things that I didn't talk about. So little context as to kind of the camp I'm talking about is you've got a service in the morning, and during the day you're doing camp activities like team competitions, kind of athletic based more or less, and you're on a team color, and we are orange team this year. And then in the evenings you're doing like services, and all throughout the week you're competing against other teams like the blue team, green team, orange team, pink team, whatever colors. And at the end of the week, whatever team gets the most points for winning the most things, they win. But there's also spirit points, which you get for doing nice things and Christ-like things. And usually my teams are the spirit point teams because we usually are not the athletic team, but that might be different this year, potentially. I don't know. So that's kind of the context of camp that I'm talking about. So a couple of things that I didn't think about mentioning in the first video that I wanted to kind of hit here is when it comes to the spirit side of things and all that sort of stuff, how you make camp great is by first, you've got to get super excited about camp. The rule of thumb that I typically think by is whatever level I go of like hype, excitement, whatever energy, students will meet me about halfway. That's just the general rule of thumb that I tend to live by, is that whatever level I go, however extreme or far I go, students will usually meet me about halfway. So if I'm like super ultra excited about camp, then my kids will be pretty dang excited. But if I'm like, camp's cool, it's awesome, then they'll be, camp's good, it is what it is. So lead the way in excitement, go crazy. I mean, fully step out of your comfort zone and just go crazy, get excited, push the energy, push the excitement, energy, whatever words you want to use, but just go crazy for camp. This is going to be an exciting week for you and your students. Lead the way in excitement. The rule of thumb I live by, which is a different one from the other one, is that if I come back from camp with a voice and not dead tired, then I did camp wrong. So come back from camp super tired and exhausted because you gave it all, and come back without a voice because you were screaming and cheering and doing chants all week long, and it was the best time of your life and the best time of your students' lives. So just get super duper dang excited. The way we used to phrase it in high school is we would go ham. So just go crazy. Lead the way in excitement. I know everybody has a different expression of excitement, but whatever your expression of excitement is, lean in as far as you possibly can into that and go a few steps further, and then you will lead your students into new spaces of excitement. So get excited because camp is awesome. And as well, assuming you're in team colors or team names or whatever, I would say deck out as much as you possibly can in your team color. So I'm on orange team this year, so I'm trying to find some orange socks, which is surprisingly difficult. I would love to find some orange Crocs without spending $150 on Crocs now, but I'm wearing orange shirts, orange face paint, bandanas. I bought a morph suit for camp. It's the inflatable chubby ones too. So I'm really excited about that. But like, go absolutely crazy with the team colors, props, all that sort of stuff. Fully deck out in your team color, lead the way in that, and you'll have a great time. So then on the other side of this, with interacting with students, how you make that experience really good and really great, here's a few things that I've found to be really helpful. This first one is a really basic. It might sound like oh yeah, duh, I already do that. And it might just be a reminder for some of you. For some of you, this might be a bit of a step. Everybody's in a different spot. But first thing is more than likely, if you're the team leader or even if you're one of the team leaders, there's going to be new students on your team that you don't know, that you haven't met before, that are probably from another church or another group or something like that. One of the most valuable things you can do is do anything and everything you can to remember the names of the students on your team. If you have 20 kids, you only know 5, so you got to learn 15 names. I mean, literally do whatever you have to do. If you have to, I know it feels like you look stupid, but if you have to write down their names and whatever it is, like any method you can, do all the things you can to remember the names of the students that are on your team, because it makes a massive difference versus, hey, can you come help me, versus, I don't know, Colton, or Caleb. We'll go with Caleb. I like the name Caleb because I can think of a student named Caleb. Like, hey, Caleb, can you come help me with something? There's just a difference in just saying general terms versus using their name. And it goes a long way because it goes a long way. There's 1,000 things that could be said about it. So use students' names and remember to use them as much as you possibly can to interact with students. So throughout the week, you're going to be in a whole host of different environments. You're going to be at lunch, you're going to be at games, you're going to be in services, you're going to be in leader things, whatever it is. But look for ways to go above and beyond in whatever space that you find yourself in. There's going to be 1,000 rooms, 1,000 spaces, 1,000 opportunities, and it's hard to really fully cover. But the basic principle is find ways to go above and beyond. But where you take this so much more farther, because that's the proper English, where you take this farther is when you find an opportunity to go above and beyond, invite a few students around you by name to follow you in that action. So let's say you are going about your day, you're doing your thing at camp, and you find someone on staff, maybe with a kitchen, and they're unloading some things like cases of water and food into the kitchen. And you spot that and you go, oh, let's go help them. Instead of me just go and help them, I look around and I find, okay, here's Caleb again, here's Lily, and then here is, I don't know, can't think of a name, but this dude, which I need to think of a name, we'll go with Nathan. So we got Caleb, Lily, and Nathan. They're all right here, right by me. And then it's like, hey, you three, Caleb, Lily, Nathan, hey, let's go help them really quick with whatever that task is. And so you find students that are around you and you invite them in to follow you in this action of going above and beyond. And it just makes a big difference, not only in your students, but the camp. And then if everybody at the camp is thinking the same way, it just makes everything so much better. Another way that you can go about making camp great for students is, especially during games, this is a really interesting kind of dynamic I find that happens, is you're going to have 30 kids, 50, 60 kids on a team, something like that. It's going to depend on the camp and all that sort of stuff, but you're going to have a pretty good chunk of kids. And throughout the day, you're going to be in different games, and some games are going to call for 5 guys and then 5 girls, and then some games are going to be like, here do 9 guys and a girl and 9 girls and a guy, and they're just going to, the rec staff is going to mix things up to just make the game a little interesting. Now, when you are like, okay, who can play this game and who can do this thing, you're going to have 1 or 2 interactions with students. Either one is before you even start the sentence, you're going to have a kid that like, hey, who? Oh, me. I want to go. Please let me play. Before you finish that sentence, me. They're just going to be right there. I actually find those kids to be much easier to deal with because you can throw them in the first round because they're just gung-ho about absolutely everything in the world. You let them play, and then they get out, and then they're like, oh, me, I want to play. And then you're like, hey, you just played. Let's make sure we get other people to have a chance to play as well. And I find that just really easy because they're just like, yes, they're gung-ho about absolutely everything in the world. And you can just say, hey, let's let other students have an opportunity. And it's usually pretty easy, at least in my experience. But then you have the opposite side of the spectrum where you have some kids that just are like, they're shy about doing games and activities for whatever reason. Sometimes it's just, they're just shy. Sometimes they're just nervous. Sometimes they just want to be around their friends. Whatever it is, there's 1,000 reasons why. They're going to come up with why they don't want to do a game or something like that. But what I find to work really well is that you take some moments, intentional moments, whether it's you or another leader, and interact with the students and figure out an interest of theirs. So maybe you have a really quiet student, a really quiet girl, and her name is Nicole. And you remember her name. So Nicole, hey, do you want to jump in on this game because I think you'd be great at it? And they're like, no, that's not me. I usually give them one more chance of like, hey, do you want to jump in? And if there's like, no, then, hey, we're not here to force people. If they don't want to, don't force them into it, because usually that just ends up being bad. So it's like, hey, okay, that's fine. But what I think about is, let's say this student, Nicole, she loves painting. I'm going to find a game, an activity, somewhere in that week that is even 1% remotely close to painting, or whatever it is that her interest is. And when that game rolls around, it's like, hey, Nicole, here's this game. I think you would be great at it because you paint. here's what it does. For whatever reason, little things like that just go a really long way because one, in the realest sense, it shows that you notice them. You use their name, so it's like, oh, someone noticed me, but it recognizes something really valuable about them. And as much as it's a really teeny tiny simple interaction, somehow those interactions go a really, really, really long way with students of just find out the things about them that they like and find some way to encourage them to get involved and to be part of the thing. So here's this game. It kind of remotely involves painting in some way. Hey, Nicole, would you jump in on this? I think you would be really great at it because you paint. So I think you would totally do great and you would totally win. The team would be helped out by you doing that. Now, if they say no, then, hey, it's fine. At the end of the day, we're not here to force people, that sort of thing. But I think you'd be surprised if you can pinpoint their name and interest in how their thing that they're good at adds value to the team. You would be surprised at how often they're like, yeah, I think I will. And especially if you can get other students around, they're like, hey, yeah, you would totally be good at this. We're going to cheer you on. You're going to do amazing. You're going to do awesome. You encourage them. And then they feel seen. They feel noticed. They feel valued. And it kind of, at the end of the day, it's a win-win. And at the end of the day, also, what it does is as you do those little things to encourage them and to spur them on, even if they're not even in your youth group, even if they have just taken one step forward in a good direction, hey, at the end of the week, that's a win. A student took a step. They went from step 0 to step 1, or from step 1 to step 2. I call that a win. Not every win has to be this massive blowout win, but some wins are just as valuable of the little thing of they were really shy at the beginning of the week, but they pulled out of their shell just for a little bit for a moment, and they actually had a lot of fun doing it. So those are little things that I think can be really helpful in making camp great. And a last little bonus one is don't forget that while you're at camp as a leader, camp is for you too. So lean in on the services, experience God, encounter God in new ways. And I also find them to be a really good chance to kind of network with other youth pastors. Very likely it's going to be youth pastors within a somewhat close geographical area to you. So I use them as a great opportunity to meet other youth pastors that are relatively at least close to me, because I always find it to be really beneficial to have a few youth pastors that are local to you that you can interact with and go visit and go hang out with. But then also you have other people that are more broad and that can kind of speak into general things. So it's a great chance to network, and it's also a great chance for you to be refreshed with God. You have that personal encounter and interaction with God as well. You're not just there only to serve your students, but you are there to be filled as well. And so take time to lean into the messages, although they're geared towards students. But you'd be surprised at how often messages that are even geared towards students that you might have heard 1,000 times can still speak to you in different seasons of your life. So lean in on camp. Camp is the best week. I think camps are the absolute best. So remember students' names, deck out in your colors, get super uber crazy excited, go ham in on everything, have a great time and a great experience at camp. And little steps are still big steps, even if they don't feel like it. And so that's kind of part 2 of this How to Make Camp Great. And just like my videos always end, I don't know how to end them. So I think of all the content and then I just get to the end and just kind of call it a day. So thanks for watching. Appreciate you being here. And feel free to leave a comment, maybe with another little tidbit that you find to be helpful about camp and ways to make camp even better. So love to hear some of your thoughts in the comments. And I'm going to camp in 2 weeks and I'm pumped. Let's go. It's camp season. Let's go.